Welcome to Conversations with Women Who Lead, honest conversations about business, leadership, and what really shapes how women lead. I'm Anne-Marie McHenry, business coach, consultant, creator, and a therapist for the past 2 decades. On this podcast, I sit down with women to talk about their businesses and their unique areas of expertise, as well as how their upbringing, background, and the social conditioning they've experienced have shaped the way they lead. We explore what they've had to learn and unlearn along the way. I'll also be sharing my own journey of founding and selling a business and the very real trials, lessons, and reinvention involved in building my next chapter, Rose and Stone. This is a space for thoughtful leadership, honest conversation, and women redefining success on their own terms. I'm so happy you're here. Thanks for joining us on Conversations with Women Who Lead. Welcome to Conversations with Women Who Lead. My name is Anne-Marie McHenry. I'm our host. This is Katherine Flechaus, and she'll be joining us today. I'll give us a little bit of background information about Katherine. She is an LCSW who has spent nearly 30 years at the intersection of behavioral health, leadership, and human development. And the through line has always been the same question: why do capable women keep getting in their own way? As a core belief strategist and founder of Aligned Core Life Coaching, Katherine created the Safeguard Profile to answer that. Her work helps ambitious women recognize the protective patterns shaping their careers and relationships, not as flaws to fix, but as strengths developed for reason and ready to be redirected. Most women have never had anyone help them see what's actually driving it. Katherine, thank you so much for being here. I am really excited to talk with you about all of this.
Oh, I'm excited to be here, Anne-Marie. Love talking about this stuff.
Yes. So tell me about your current business and the coaching that you're doing with women.
Okay. About a year ago, I branched off from my therapy practice and started a life coaching business because I saw that there was a need for women to have access that didn't have to be mental health. Right? You didn't have to have a mental health diagnosis in order to do the kind of work I was doing with so many women. And so I started Aligned Core Life Coaching to address really the core beliefs that get in the way of people advancing in their life and in their career. It was something that I saw repeatedly over time in my therapy practice and wanted to make sure that I could expand that to a larger audience. As you know, as a therapist, we have different restrictions than we do as coaches. So that was the motivation for starting.
Right. And so being a coach, you have the ability to access more clients, provide a broader net of support because you can work with people across state lines. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So, and people can move and still have the same person, right? Because we're a very mobile society. And what I was finding in my practice was people were moving for jobs or personal reasons. And then you had to stop working with them simply because of licensure issues, which is detrimental to the individual, but it's the way the system works.
Yeah. Yeah. I do understand that. And it's so hard to start over with a new therapist coach after you've invested so much time, shared so much of yourself. So it's lovely that you can offer your support across state lines.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Well, tell me more about the structure that you've created, the framework, and how you're supporting your clients using that.
Okay. So what I noticed, because my career has been very broad, I'm in what I hope to be the last chapter of my career in my 60s. I started off in the medical world, working with seniors in the hospital. So I saw that sort of life stage. And then after 10 years, I went back, got my master's degree, started working in outpatient mental health and with kids and families. So I saw family dynamics, live in action, not just the textbook stuff that we read about. And I worked with adolescents, and I saw the stresses that adolescents went under between peer pressure, sports pressure, educational pressure, family pressures, and then went into working with adults in my private practice. So listening to them, I could start to see those patterns that went back in time, right? It wasn't like we survived middle school and we're fine and we didn't take any of that with us. We all carry baggage with us. So this framework is really based around the fact that these things that we call people pleasing, imposter syndrome, perfectionism, that we kind of have given a sort of negative connotation to,
Mhm.
are actually just strategies that we learned earlier in life to cope with something we didn't really understand. So, for example, if you were being bullied in middle school, which is unfortunately very common with women, you learned how to read a room. You learned how to talk to people. You learned who was the person you needed to schmooze to keep happy. Right. So these became really effective strategies, and it worked. It kept you safe with that bully, with that mean girl. And then because they worked, you just kept using them. And it's sort of, so then your way of interacting with the world is around these sort of behaviors.
Mhm.
So until you take the time to recognize that that is really what's driving the behavior, it's hard. It's hard to work on sustained change.
Mhm.
So for so many years, what I was doing was working at the surface level with women and, okay, how do you stop being a people pleaser? How do you, set boundaries? And it just wasn't working because we weren't going back far enough to understand why.
Mhm.
But if you don't understand why you're doing something, you don't come up with the right strategies to fix it. So that's the framework, the concept behind safeguard strategies is let's start to look at them for what they are, right? They were protective patterns. They were useful. Now they're not so useful. So let's figure out how we can take the strengths that are within them, because there are strengths in all of those, um, and use them to move yourself forward, whether it's in your career, your personal relationships.
Mhm.
So there's six strategies, six safeguard profiles that kind of sum up these sort of, specific areas. And we look at those, we understand where they came from, we understand what the strengths are that are within them, and then we use all that to develop a plan to move forward.
Mhm.
And that's where you find growth and sustained change, because you're starting where the meaning lies, not just where the behavior is.
Mhm. And so are the safeguard strategies is people pleasing an example of that? Or
Yep.
what would you
Right.
say?
So like a people pleaser is what I would call a harmony keeper, right? Because in
Mm.
fact, that's what you're doing. You're keeping
Yep.
harmony, right?
Mhm.
So you know how to read a room. You pick up on people's behaviors and their moods, and it can go one way or the other, right? It can go into you're putting somebody else's needs before your own, or it could go into understanding that you can read a person. So maybe as a leader, you can intervene earlier with someone that you're mentoring or working with, to help them through whatever they're dealing with, so that they're a better team member,
Mhm.
right? So it could go one way and say, I'm just going to say yes to everything and be completely overwhelmed, or I'm going to lean into this way of understanding people and help people help themselves.
Mhm.
So what was considered a negative now becomes a strength, because that strength is real. It's not
Mhm.
made up.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. So how did you identify these 6 different safeguard strategies?
They were the the um the symptoms that people were coming to me the most with, right? The
Mhm.
most. People were, self-identify as a people pleaser, as codependent, or, as imposter syndrome.
Mhm.
And then there's these other two, the evaluator and the credibility keeper, that you don't see as often, but these are about people that are driven by, um, like the evaluator safeguard is driven by the need for financial safety, like
Mhm.
people who grew up in homes where there wasn't economic stability.
Mhm.
And so they become very hypersensitive to impulsive financial decisions, to making any decision. So
Mhm.
these are the people you see who just struggle to make a decision. And no matter how much information they're given, right, they still are looking for another piece of data, another piece of information before they can make a decision.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then the credibility keeper safeguard that I see is, women who, usually, interestingly, have been in the sports arena or or academic, really been pushed academically. So they have this standard that they set themselves up to, right? Like I have to always be top of the class. And if somebody is challenging that, they're challenging my identity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but these are people who are also, very organized, very diligent, very, give them any task and they will do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So again, trying to pull out those strengths to
Mm-hmm.
say that, somebody could be successful in this area over here, but you can still be successful in this area over here. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't threaten who you are.
Mm-hmm.
So these are sort of the personality responses that I've seen over time.
Mm-hmm.
There are probably more, but these are, sort of generally
Mm-hmm.
how people identify.
Yeah. Yeah. And I imagine you identified these 6 different types because
Hmm.
there is a lot of commonality in each of those types that then
Hmm.
you like,
Hmm.
actually, this is becoming clear to
Right.
me, fit into the
Right.
credibility seeker,
Right.
or harmony seeker.
Right. Right. And
That
so
makes
like with any title, it's really just, like we give a diagnosis, we give a title to explain a group of symptoms or feelings or reactions. So it's just
Mhm.
giving a new language to talk about the same thing.
Yeah, which feels much less pathologizing or like something's wrong with
Mm-hmm.
a diagnosis and then a treatment plan.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right.
The cluster of ways that I've seen people show up, and you might fit into this, and does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Uh, and from what I've experienced is people always want to learn more about themselves. We love taking
Mm-hmm.
personality quizzes and
Mm-hmm.
assessments, what this means,
Mm-hmm.
and so having this language, which feels
Right.
very accessible to me,
Mm-hmm.
um, it just seems like it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah. That's my hope, is that people will connect with it and see it as empowering, not disempowering, which is
Yes.
so important. We are so good at disempowering ourselves as women.
Yes. I heard you mention women and these patterns that you see in
Hmm.
women.
Hmm.
Do you mainly work with women, and is this only about women, or are there other identities that
Uh,
can?
no, it definitely shows up in men as well.
Mhm.
Um, but men don't seek support as often as women do. So
Mhm.
yes, I am open to working with men, but
Mhm.
primarily the people who arrive at my doorstep are women.
Mhm.
But I've seen the same patterns in men.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, can you speak more to, and I read about this a little bit on your website, just observing, that women might be patterned or conditioned in certain ways based on their
Hmm.
upbringing, their family of origin,
Hmm. Hmm.
societal expectations. Um, I'm just curious for the women out there seeking some validation around these patterns
Hmm.
that you're seeing.
Hmm.
Um, it sounds very common and normal what you're seeing
Hmm.
since you work with so many women across the years, across
Hmm.
time. Um,
Right. And the most important thing is that I want all the women that I work with to know that, this is normal. This is just how we respond to what we're given in life. And that when we go back and we look in the past to try to figure out where it all started, it's not about blame. It's not about shaming anyone. It's not about accusing anyone of doing anything, right? It's just about understanding.
mhm,
So like for myself, I'm one of 6 kids in an Irish Catholic family raised in a very small farming community. Right.
mhm,
So my social pressures were, the expectations of the Catholic Church and how to be a good girl and how to be responsible. Um, being part of a small community,
mhm,
you were defined by your family, those that went before you, those that went after you, so these are all these expectations that get placed on you, girls in this family behave like this, girls, and just in general, girls behave like this.
mhm,
I mean, back in my day, girls still wore skirts to school, and dresses. And by elementary school, we were allowed one day we could wear a pair of jeans,
wow.
so right there, and that was my mother. That wasn't the school. That was, my mother's expectation for us. So right there, right, that
Yeah.
is already separating you out, that you're different from the boys in the classroom.
Mhm, mhm,
And then again, those expectations that are given to us be nice, be polite, help others, right?
Mhm.
And and so then your life starts, you realize that, okay, I get positive validation. I get, my needs met when I do these things that people expect of me. And these are all, they're so subtle, right?
Mhm.
And they're reinforced over time. Girls in school, the statistics show us that boys raise their hands more than girls do in school. So again, you're reinforced to be quiet, don't look smart, don't be too much, don't
Mhm.
be that person,
Mhm.
don't be loud. And so these are the messages that we carry with us. And because nobody's really telling us, right, it's just sort of happening to us, that's
Mhm.
societal pressure.
Mhm.
Um, we just start to figure it out on our own. And
Mhm.
so we sometimes have misconceptions, and that's where these
Mhm.
patterns come from,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, we have to figure
Uh,
out how to survive, but then that can
right.
create misconceptions about
Hmm.
our worthiness, our
Hmm.
place in
Hmm.
society. I'm curious, like,
Right. Right.
I say,
Then, you move into adulthood, and as women, you make choices. Do you get married? Don't you get married? You know, there's there's a comments, right, people make about women who don't get married, right? There, then do you have children? Don't you have children? If you don't have children, what's wrong with you? You know?
mhm,
And so these are, again, all these pressures. Do you put, quote, your career first or your family first? These are all pressures that that leaves women trying to figure out how to do it all, right?
mhm,
I
mhm,
want to be married. I want to work. I want to have kids. How do I do all that?
mhm,
And so then that becomes the pressure to do it all.
mhm. And what's your stance on doing it all?
My stance is that we as women need to support women in whatever they want to do, right? We've got to stop judging each other, and we have to stop expecting that we're supposed to do it all.
Mhm,
That we can ask our partner for support. We can organize again, based on what your job allows, but maybe then that's where you choose where you work. Do you work in a place that has more flexibility because you do want to do it all? You want to work full time, and you want to raise kids, and you want to be part of their lives and go to their games and their events and their things, right?
mhm,
So maybe instead of fighting a system that doesn't give you flexibility, you choose a different system that
mhm,
will give you flexibility.
mhm,
So we need to stop believing that we have to do it all,
mhm,
and we should be supported in doing doing it the way we want to do it.
mhm,
You know, stay at home if we want to stay at home, work if we want to work, but also ask for the help that we need.
mhm. Yeah. Just hearing you say all that feels so freeing to me because it's a conversation that comes up a lot with women that I speak to about
Hmm.
can we do it all? Should we do it all? I can't physically do it all, but I'm doing a lot.
Hmm.
And just to hear you say, like, it's not about doing it all. It's about creating a support system or the supports
Hmm.
around you so that you have the flexibility to do what you want.
Hmm.
That just feels like there's so much permission to like drop
Right.
the pressure to do everything
Right.
at 100% because that's just not
Hmm.
possible.
It's just not possible. And think about it. If you take a step back and you start to ask yourself, why do I think I need to do it all? Where does that message come from? Right. And then you unpack that and be like, okay, I don't have to. I don't
Mm,
have to do it all. That was a way I'd done it in the past because that worked for me.
mhm,
But now let me look at all my resources. Why wouldn't my partner step up? Why wouldn't I ask? Why can't I ask? Right?
mhm,
Let go of the guilt that comes with asking for help or
mhm,
thinking you can't do it all.
mhm, mhm.
And for crying out loud, get off social media because,
Yeah,
you know, you're watching the people who you think are doing it all. They're not really doing it all.
yeah. They probably have a lot of support behind the scenes that we don't
Hmm.
actually see.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Or they're not as happy as they actually appear.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So with your clients that you're working with,
Hmm.
let's say that they identify their safeguard strategy. Can you
Hmm.
talk a little bit about like how do we then move that into using that strategy in a way that better serves them rather than it kind
Hmm.
of holding them back? maybe a
Right.
broad picture of what that looks like.
Yeah. So once you understand the why, why are you doing it, then you start to what I call pattern mapping, right? So follow
Mm,
the pattern and understand it. So
mhm,
you spend some time objectively without judgment, which is so important without judgment. Just watch how the pattern plays out, right? And what feelings are coming up for you. Um, and what, like, are there some situations that are bigger triggers than others
mhm,
to kicking in this safeguard?
mhm,
We always want to start with what I call the low hanging fruit, right? The easier stuff. Let's not start with the hardest stuff and experience failure. Let's start with the easier stuff,
mhm,
um, and move forward slowly, consistently, build on success.
mhm,
So once you understand, so maybe you understand, that your your inability to, one woman I work with, her inability to set boundaries with people is because she feels like it'll take away from the core of who she is, a nice person who likes to do for others.
mhm,
Okay.
mhm,
So then, and that's, unique to her. It may not be unique to her, but,
mhm,
in our work, it's unique to her, right?
mhm,
So then let's look at what balance looks like. Like, how can you still be you without doing more? And so then you start to understand the difference between, somebody you want to do something for and someone you feel like you have to do something for. Do you feel like you have to do this for this person to keep this relationship?
mhm,
Okay, so if that's the driving force keeping the relationship, is it a relationship that's worth keeping if it's dependent on you doing more than your share? Right. So you
mhm,
start to understand dynamics
mhm,
and that maybe you don't have to hold on to everybody in your life.
mhm,
Maybe you don't have as many people, but the people that you have are quality people
mhm,
um, who will do for you what you do for them.
mhm. Yeah,
Right. So
that
that's balance.
uh-huh. Yeah, that's lovely because it sounds like that strategy is a really beautiful one and it comes from an important place and
Hmm.
value in that
Hmm.
person. You're getting at the nuance and
Right.
how to actually use this in a way that feels really good for you and where you're
Hmm.
maybe just looking more critically at how that
Hmm.
pattern and then deciding when you want to use that pattern so that it feels
Right.
good and authentic
Right.
and aligned with who you are.
Right. And so, like, for this one person, so then she'll go out there and try. Right.
Mhm,
And the important thing is to pay attention to how the interactions she is having are consistent with who she is. Right. So she hasn't given up being a kind hearted person. She's
mhm.
just given up overdoing. So
Yeah.
the energy that she has for her acts of kindness are for the people that
Mhm,
there's more for the people who need it and that
mhm,
she wants to give it to,
mhm.
and realize that nothing bad happened, right? She's still who she is. And that's what I see with a lot of women. They're afraid they're going to lose their core of who
Mm,
they are, by setting a boundary, by
mhm.
setting a limit with somebody.
Yeah, I can see how
It's
that would
just
feel.
about preserving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you say more about that? That you see that women feel afraid that they're gonna lose who they are?
Hmm. Right. Because think about it. So your whole life has sort of revolved around this identity, right?
Mm,
That we see this a lot in women. I'm the fixer. I'm the person that people come to, right?
mhm,
And so there is a validation in that. And there's, a joy and a happiness in fixing things, right? Helping people do something, helping people resolve something. But what happens when so many people come to you that you don't even have the energy for yourself anymore, right?
mhm,
So how do you learn when's the time to fix and when's the time to step back?
mhm,
And one of the things about fixers is you're so busy being helpful, right? And with good intention, right? That you don't realize that the fixing takes the autonomy away from the other person, right?
Mhm.
You're basically telling them they can't do it. They need you to fix it.
Mhm.
And so now you have this situation where everyone's coming to you because they're not trying on their own. Sometimes the best gift you can give to someone, as someone who likes to fix things, is to teach them how to fish instead of give them fish. um,
Mhm.
Learn that, and that has been such a aha moment for so many women I work with when they're like, "Oh, I
Mhm.
didn't even think about it that way." That
Mhm.
I'm taking away their ability to learn for themselves. Mothers do it unintentionally, right? Let me do everything for my kids. Let me
Mhm.
fix all their problems. And now the kids don't know how to survive in life, right?
Mhm.
It was good intention
Mhm.
and it was what they were trained to do. But then there are consequences. So that's the other thing in pattern mapping. We look at consequences. Where are the consequences to you, to the other
Mhm.
people in your life? If you give so much of yourself at work and you're that fixer at work, you're that go-to person. When you come home, do you have any emotional bandwidth left for your family, for yourself?
Mhm. Yeah,
So,
probably not.
so yeah, right. So once you understand this and you start to look at what we call, a cost analysis, how much is this costing you?
Mhm.
For some women, it's costing them in dollars and cents because they're not getting promotions, right?
Mhm.
In other people, it's an emotional currency, right? So there's no, there's no energy left for the
Mhm.
other things in life.
Mhm.
And then as we practice this, and because, work is time limited,
Mhm.
we then come up with a resiliency plan.
Mm.
And this is something that I learned through my work with substance use disorders, it's called now. It used to be chemical dependency.
Mhm.
Um, is in that world, they accept and acknowledge that relapse is part of recovery,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? And so that in itself takes the stigma and the shame out of it, right?
Mhm.
Because it's going to happen. So let's plan for it.
Yeah.
So taking that same concept, these are habits and patterns and thought processes that we've been doing for so long that they are going to come back,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm.
For me, I struggle a lot with imposter syndrome.
Mhm.
Um, and as much work as I've done on that, every now and then something comes up and there she is. She pops up again, right?
Mhm.
But now I have a plan for how to talk to her, how to
Mhm.
recognize what it is,
Mhm.
recognize the old thoughts and how they're not, they don't hold the same weight anymore. And
Mhm.
so everyone that leaves the program has a resiliency plan for what are you going to do when
Mhm.
these things come up again, because they are going to come up again. And to say that, you're fixed after an 8-week program,
Mhm.
that's not realistic, right?
Right. Right.
That's not human nature.
Yeah, there's also so much validation and freedom in hearing you say that we might
Hmm.
come to you or a provider for help with this thing that's coming up in our life. And you can do a bunch of work for however many weeks, but to really normalize that those old patterns, it's
Hmm.
inevitable that they'll come back,
Hmm.
feels so welcoming and gentle.
Right?
Those
Right?
patterns existed for years, right? Or decades.
Hmm.
And so it's
Hmm.
normal and to be expected that you might flip back into that imposter syndrome and then see it. And then
Right.
now you have a plan of how you want to manage it.
Right. Right. So the goal then becomes not that it pattern is never coming back, but how quickly do you recognize it? How quickly do you adjust to it?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because that's normal. That's the way our brains work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, let's normalize it. Let's say, hey, it's going to happen. Let's be
Mm-hmm.
prepared for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then when it happens, you're like, oh, there it is. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Welcome back. Nice to see you again. Here's what we're going
Right.
to do.
Right. Good
Um,
to see you now. Get out.
right? Yes. Yes. For anyone listening who
Mhm.
deals with imposter syndrome, can you share if you're comfortable sharing what you do when that comes up
Mhm.
or what other people have come up with on their own? Like, what is the,
Mhm. Yeah, and the trick is different for everybody.
yeah.
You know, for me, like I know intellectually the number of years I've had, the amount of experience that I have. Um, I have feedback from family, from clients, right? This is all intellectual. But then something happens, and that, little farm girl in me is like, oh my God, I can't do this. I'm just, a little country bumpkin,
Mm-hmm.
right? That comes up like in a split second before I even realize it. So what I have to do is recognize that that girl doesn't exist anymore, right? She has grown into this person who has all this experience. And so it's really just saying to myself, okay, I understand where that is coming from, but that doesn't exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I talk myself down to,
Mm-hmm.
remember. And the thing with how our brains work is like we can do mantras, right? We can stand in a mirror and say something we want to see for the future, right? Or we can go back to something that actually happened, right? So like, I know I did A, B, or C, and I can relive those experiences, like truly close my eyes and remember them, um, and get back into that space of confidence
Mm-hmm.
because that really happened. This mantra of what I want to see in the future hasn't happened yet, but this thing in the past has happened. And so when I go back there, my brain goes back there with me and remembers that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it happened.
Mm-hmm.
And that shuts off the other pathway, the imposter syndrome pathway that's going to, oh my God, you can't do this. Oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you can. These are the things you've done.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's grounded in reality. It's not grounded in, fairy dust and sunshine.
Right. And all the hopes and dreams that are wonderful to have, but to
Mm-hmm.
actually bring data points that support the
Mm-hmm.
reality that you are
Mm-hmm.
capable or worthy or
Right.
whatever
Right.
the
Right.
question might be. Yeah.
Right.
When you have worked with women in leadership, business owners, you're a business owner yourself, what do you notice about their safeguard strategies or what they're particularly wonderful at? Um,
And that's, such an interesting question because most women, we never want to say all or nothing, but most women are genuinely good at relationships, right? That's what we bring to the world.
mhm,
But in corporate America, relationships aren't always valued from a woman's point of view, right?
mhm, mhm,
Corporate has a way of what relationships should look like, right? Um, Women bring just a more personal touch. I don't know quite how to describe it, except, more personal touch. Um, and that is not always seen as valuable as it should. So therefore they think I have to learn a different way. I have to
mhm,
step back. I have to learn a different way of interacting.
mhm,
Uh, why? Just
mhm,
because, the system has it worked well? And that's the kind of stuff that we talk about. Like,
mhm,
has it worked? Are you seeing it work with other people? If this is innately how you interact with people, what's wrong with that? Right? Why can't you be like this? As long as you still do A, B, and C, right? We still have to set limits. We still have to,
mhm.
hold people to expectations. But there are many different ways you can do that.
Yeah.
And so helping women step into recognizing that this is the strength I have and this is how I can use it,
Mhm,
without being taken advantage of, without being looked like, you're too soft, you're too weak, because
mhm,
those are some of the terms that come with a sort of more feminine
mhm.
approach to things.
Yeah. That's really interesting that you're saying that because it almost what I am hearing and receiving is that you can be a full-grown adult and get into corporate
Hmm.
and then create new safeguards
Hmm.
because of that environment you're in, and maybe there
Hmm.
is resonance with your childhood, maybe there's not. Maybe you just get into a
Hmm.
system and realize, "Oh, now I have to show
Hmm.
up in a different way, otherwise I'm not gonna be good
Right.
enough."
Right.
So, yeah, it's really interesting hearing you describe that because
Hmm. Hmm.
corporate is an interesting place to work and to spend, the
Right.
majority of your week, and I can see that.
Right. 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 Because they are little ecosystems, right?
Yeah.
So the same influences of social pressure, but it's the social pressure from that ecosystem. It's the expectations, the assignment of roles. If you're in this position, you act like this. If you're in this position, you act like that.
Mhm. And so, how would someone know if they're ready to do this kind of work with you and to uncover some things and start a new way? Like, what comes up for people before they come to see you?
I think, it's usually something significant has happened, right?
Mm,
Like maybe you've been passed over for a promotion. Um, you you wanted to go for promotion, but you just didn't have the quote nerve to do it, right? I'm not ready yet. I need more training. I need more time. And
mhm,
then you watch someone less experienced get the job. And that can be, an eye opener. That was for me earlier in my career. Um, I stepped back and I'm like, no, I haven't been doing this long enough. I need to. And then sure enough, up steps a gentleman, and men are not that, there are not as many of them in the therapy field, right?
mhm, mhm,
But they always seem to land in the leadership roles. Um, and I was like, oh, well, shoot, now I'm stuck because it's going to be a couple years before there's another opening.
mhm,
So it's those kind of moments. Um, for some women, it's just the relationship has gotten bad enough.
uh-huh,
Things haven't changed. They're exhausted. They're tired of again doing it all, um, and they've just sort of hit a wall.
mhm, mhm.
So I've created this very simple scan because people like to, again, take these little
Yeah,
tests and see.
yeah,
Um, and it's just simple 5 questions. Um, and it helps from those questions how you respond to them, which category you fall into.
mhm,
Um, and then I send a little description of this is what this category is.
mhm,
This is maybe where it would have started. These
mhm,
are the true strengths that come from that. And then see if that resonates. Does that click for somebody to say, oh, now it's starting to make sense?
mhm, mhm.
Um, so
Yeah,
that's one way for people just to kind of, dip their toe in the water and see
mhm,
if it makes sense or
yeah.
not.
That's such an easy entry point too. I love that you're
Hmm.
offering on your website
Hmm.
that you can just
Yeah.
do this mini scan and get an
Hmm.
output, see where you
Hmm.
probably land and why,
Right.
and next.
Right.
Yeah.
And then if you want to talk about it, I'm very low pressure sales. It's either for you or it's not. There's no sense
Mhm,
making you think that this is something you need if you're not ready for it. Because if
mhm.
until you're ready, you're not going to do the work. We know this as therapists and we
Yeah,
know this as coaches, right?
yeah. Can you speak to you're clearly so knowledgeable about these core beliefs that come up, the ways that we protect ourselves, how to move us out of those, not pathologize, normalize, and then do
Hmm.
what we want to do moving forward that actually feels aligned and lovely for us.
Hmm.
I love everything that you're creating. It sounds just so approachable and so accessible. Can you speak
Thank
to
you.
what part of course, what part of you and your personality or your history built this business?
Yeah. Um, I would say that the oppositional defiant part of me, and the impulsive side built the business because I was very frustrated working in corporate healthcare.
Okay.
And I kept trying to make change, right? Because I kept
Mhm,
trying to push my profession further than it was allowed to go in
mhm,
that system.
mhm,
So I finally had to just decide that I alone could not change this whole massive system, right? So
mhm,
I could continue to be unhappy in it, or I
mhm,
could continue to, or I could do something about it. So the sort of impulsive person in me was like, oh, well, I have my licenses. Everything you can do remotely now. I need a laptop and a quiet space and I can start a business and I can be my independent self.
mhm,
Um, and then I realized there's this whole business end of it. How do you market yourself? How do you budget yourself? How do you get your name out there?
mhm.
Um, and so that was where like the impulsive person in me didn't do enough planning and I'm catching up. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, the oppositional side of me gave up. Like, I can't fight the system that doesn't want to change. And then impulsively, I'm like, oh, well, this is what I'm going to do because I've had enough because I
Mhm.
waited too long, right? I didn't get out soon enough.
Yes.
Um, but I might not have done it
Yeah.
if I hadn't, gone
Yeah.
too far and that I desperately needed a change.
Yeah.
So the hard part has been learning the business end of it. Like,
Yeah.
I got the therapy skills, and then when I, learned more about coaching and again, in society, we've become so siloed, right? You're this or you're that. You can do this or that. When this door opened that you could also be a coach, right?
Mhm.
I didn't
Mhm.
have to be a business executive to be a coach.
Mhm.
Um, I was like, oh, well, let me explore this avenue,
Yeah.
which requires even more marketing and even more business management. So
Mhm.
I enrolled in a business coaching class to try to
Mhm.
learn. I pushed as much as I could with free content, and then when I
Mhm.
realized that I needed that next step, then I had to invest in myself,
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
and try to understand that piece of it,
Yeah. Yeah.
which has been the biggest struggle.
Yes, the business side of a business is if you're
Yeah.
not, went to school for it and was brought
Mhm.
up professionally learning and being supported in that way, it's
Mhm.
definitely the whole thing. You gotta learn it
Yeah.
and figure
Yeah.
it out, and it sounds like
Mhm.
you're describing a couple things that sound like a parallel process with you and your clients, like the one
Mhm.
about needing support. Like, you can do so much
Mhm.
alone and figure things
Right.
out alone and get the free content and read the books and tinker around, but at some point you realize you
Mhm.
need more support and actual
Right.
hands-on, high touch or high impact or just actual human being support
Right.
to you. The
Right.
other part that you're describing that I love is that maybe you didn't want to stay in corporate healthcare for as long as you did, but maybe you needed to stay for that long to get to a point where you
Mhm.
felt frustrated and
Mhm.
so pushed back against, because that, I think there's a lot of power in frustration and then
Mhm.
use
Yeah.
motivation to create change.
Mhm.
Not in like banging on walls or, doing
Mhm.
any sort
Right.
of violent,
Right.
but using that frustration to create and to
Mhm.
make a difference in the way
Yeah.
that you want to. And I would imagine
Yeah.
that clients that probably show up to work with you are also like, something's got to give. Like, this is not
Exactly.
what I want it to be. And so
Right.
again, like, theme that keeps coming up for me is like how validating and normalizing your experience is and how approachable you are and the tools that you're
Mhm.
offering the world. It just feels like you've lived all of this and you get it and you know it and you're
Yes.
sharing it.
Right. 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 Yeah.
So,
It's been a long journey. And
yes.
it's really so empowering to be able to share it. Because again, as therapists, we don't share about ourselves. Right.
Mhm. Mhm.
And this has been, again, you have to use good boundaries.
Mhm.
Um, but it's nice to be able to share and say, hey, you're not the only one out there.
Mhm.
Um, and that, I'm not just reading from some book or,
Yeah.
some framework, but I get it. I really get it on a
Mhm.
human level.
Yeah. And the framework that you created and the 8-week program, that all came from you, right? And
Hmm.
your experience and professional experience.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really exciting when you think about it. You get so busy doing, right? That you're doing, doing, doing. And then you sit back and you're like, oh, wow, look at that. You kind of pick your head up and be like, oh, wow, this is exciting. Now, how do I tell people about this?
Right? Yep. And then
Right.
we start reaching out and we figure out marketing and we might have another
Hmm.
couple. But yes, the world
Right. Right.
um, is more data points for that imposter syndrome of like what
Hmm.
you've created is really
Hmm.
phenomenal. I can see it helping
Right.
so many people
Oh,
in
thank
such a
you. I hope
digestible
so.
way. Yeah.
Hmm. And that's the point, right? Is to make it approachable. There's
Hmm.
so much in life that feels unapproachable.
Hmm. Hmm. One last question for you before we
Hmm.
wrap up more about your work and where to find you. What do you think that you, Catherine, are still figuring out?
Mm, marketing.
Yeah.
From a business point of view, I'm still figuring out marketing and how to be a business person.
Hmm.
Um, and, that can trigger imposter syndrome, right? Because you
Hmm.
know part of it, but you don't know all of it. So, um, So that's the business part I'm still figuring out. And I think that personally, the part that I'm still figuring out is that, I need to constantly be aware of my inner critic, my inner imposter,
Mm-hmm.
and not let them take over. They've run my life long enough.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and
Mm-hmm.
so to just be constantly aware and constantly being okay with addressing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that goes back to that sort of relapse as part of recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Like old
Mm-hmm.
beliefs are still going to come up, and that's part of the
Right.
process.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and you have so many lovely data points of what you've created that is just really incredible.
Hmm. Yep. And that's what helps to keep her quiet.
Yeah.
Most days.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there anything else that you want our listeners to know about you?
um, I just think, that as women, we have to support each other. And so if we've learned something and we have some value that we can give back, we should,
Mm-hmm.
that we don't need to hoard ideas that somebody else might take, um, and worry that, someone else is going to, um, do it better than you, or, um, do it faster than you. This is what I have to offer.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can connect with people, then that's great. I can share my experience
Mm-hmm.
personally, professionally, to help them move on and into whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm. And
maybe
let
they
me,
want to be a CEO of corporate healthcare. You know,
yeah,
I can
right.
help them. I can help them get there. It wasn't my journey, right? It was a piece of my journey, but
Sure. Yeah.
it can be somebody else's. So no judgment, no,
Mm-hmm.
um, I only work with these kinds of people or these kinds of people. We have to support each other.
Yeah. I 100% agree. For anyone who does want to work with you, how will they know
Hmm.
whether they should work with you as a coach or as their therapist?
I would say, if it's really around these core beliefs, then as a coach. If it's more of like it's gotten to the point where it's a clinical depression or an anxiety that is really impacting your ability to function in life.
Mm-hmm.
That's more the therapy realm.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's just, I want to have a better sense of myself and why I do the things I do and why these patterns keep showing up, you know, um, then coaching would be the best avenue.
Mm-hmm. And how long would a coaching arrangement, how long does that take versus maybe therapy?
Yeah, that's an interesting thing because, that's sort of one of the people try to differentiate between, coaching
Mhm.
and therapy. This particular program that I've created is an 8-week program because I want it to be very, very defined, right?
Mhm.
Like, there's a start and an end when you're feeling very frustrated, right? It's very helpful to know. And then we can continue to work together after.
Mhm.
You can come back for boot camps or refreshers.
Mhm.
Um, Therapy, you tend to want to, take a little bit of a gentler, slower approach depending on how
Mhm.
someone's feeling.
Mhm.
If someone has, a deep level of depression, you're going to do a lot of work to relieve those symptoms before
Mhm.
you can even get to new coping skills, new strategies. So it's going to be a slower
Mhm.
process where someone coming into coaching is like, I know what this is, and this is what I want to work on.
Mhm.
And we can be more directive.
Mhm. Right. And it's helpful to
If
know
that
that
makes sense.
absolutely. And your coaching program, Coaching with Katherine, is 8 weeks. There's a start and
Hmm.
there's a finish. If someone wants to
Hmm.
continue, can, but I appreciate that
Right.
8-week framework. You know what you're
Hmm.
excited for.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, it goes at your pace, but it also helps. And it helped me in my business, program to stay focused, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because mine had a beginning and an end. And so if you want to do the work, and 8 weeks just feels like a good time to keep the motivation,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Whatever business program and coaching that you're doing appears to be working very well because what you're describing is very clear. And
Thank
again,
you.
would make sense.
Yeah,
So you're doing it.
do it.
Where,
Thank you.
yes, where can people find you?
The best place to find me is through my website, Aligned Core Life Coaching.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
depending on where you spend your time in social media, because social media is a necessary evil. Um,
Mm-hmm.
right? We need it. We need it for marketing. We need it for education.
Yep.
But we need to use it like the tool it is.
Yes. It's so easy to go down rabbit holes that you don't need to and then
Hmm.
compare
Hmm.
and then end up feeling depressed and anxious.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, how many times have I heard people say, I went down the rabbit hole of social
Yeah,
media, the scrolling, right?
exactly. Yes. And then your mini scan is on your website if someone just wants to dip a toe
Hmm.
in.
Yep.
Um, and
Yep.
then
You
once you go
can,
to
you
the
can
website,
click on it through the website. And it's, like I said, 5 questions. You get your results within 5 minutes or so.
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Pretty excited about it.
yeah. Thank you for the work that you're doing. It sounds very impactful and very needed. And especially on the coaching side, just your expertise and wisdom being able to be shared across the country, but also across the world is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
nice
I'm
to
very excited about the work. Yeah. Thank
get.
you.
Um, well, thank you for joining us on Conversations with Women Who Lead. And we'll have all this information in the show notes so people can find you. And best of luck.
Great. Thanks for having me. This was a great conversation.
Awesome. Ditto.
Love talking. Yeah.
You